It's well documented that heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and stroke are the leading causes of death for Black Americans. Health disparities caused by unhealthy food choices, bad habits, and limited access to health services disproportionately affect the Black community. But here's what's really tough. Some members of the Black community simply struggle to talk about health, especially chronic diseases. A Series of Hope is a collaboration between the South Carolina Hospital Association Foundation and the communications team of St. Mark United Methodist Church in Taylors, South Carolina. This series is about conversations of hope and possibilities. Part 1 focused on cancer. Part 2 focuses on diabetes, a chronic, long-lasting health condition that affects the way the body turns food into energy. Most of what we eat is broken down into sugar, also known as glucose, and is released into our bloodstream, which then signals the pancreas to release insulin. According to information found on the Center for Disease Control's website, diabetes affects more than 34 million children, teens, and adults living in the United States, and this number continues to rise every year. While diabetes affects people of all races and ethnicities, African Americans are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes than non-Hispanic white Americans. In people with diabetes, their body either doesn't make enough insulin or it can't use the insulin it does make as well as it should. There are 3 types of diabetes: type 1, type 2, and gestational diabetes. Type 1 is believed to be caused by an autoimmune reaction that stops the body from making insulin altogether. Approximately 5 to 10% of the 34 million Americans who have diabetes have type 1. Most are diagnosed as children, teens, or young adults and must take a daily insulin shot. With type 2 diabetes, it becomes harder for the body to recognize insulin, a condition called insulin resistance. Without an appropriate insulin response, blood sugar levels rise. To put it simply, type 1 diabetes is solely caused by a lack of insulin, while type 2 can be caused by a sensitivity to insulin and a lack of insulin. Now, you may have also heard the term prediabetes. This means blood sugar levels are higher than normal, but not yet high enough to result in a type 2 diagnosis. Here's the scary part. It is estimated that 96 million American adults, that breaks down to 1 in 3, have prediabetes, and 8 out of 10 of them don't know it. Left unmonitored, those with prediabetes are at a high risk for developing type 2 diabetes, along with an increased risk of heart disease and stroke. Here are 2 unique stories. The first is about a mother, Mickey, and the second is about a daughter, Vardry. Both with diabetes, both having figured out a way to live and thrive.
My name is Margaret Grayson, but I am better known as Mickey Talley, and this is my story about my almost 30-year relationship with diabetes. It's funny I say almost 30 years, but the truth of the matter is diabetes has always been a part of my life story. Both my father and my paternal grandmother were insulin-dependent diabetics. When I was growing up, if there was a conversation about health, it was not uncommon to hear folks in a family talk about themselves or others as having a touch of sugar. As kids, we really had no idea what that meant, a touch of sugar. As I got older and understood that a touch of sugar actually meant diabetes, it didn't make me any more conscious or accepting that diabetes could become a part of my personal story. Maybe I thought it wouldn't happen to me, but it did. In 1994, I was diagnosed as pre-diabetic, which meant my blood sugar levels were higher than normal, but not high enough yet to be diagnosed as type 2 diabetic. It meant I was at high risk for not only developing type 2 diabetes, but heart disease and stroke too. It meant I needed to pay attention to my health and take immediate action. But I did nothing. I didn't try to control my weight. I didn't change my diet. In fact, I ate my favorite bowl of ice cream along with some Oreo cookies almost every night before bed. I did join a gym, but I rarely went. Had I done these things, I would be telling a different story, but instead, in 1997, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It would still take several more years and the loss of both my sister and my mom before I really started to take my own health as seriously as I should. I was seeing my doctor and taking my medication, but not doing much of anything else. I thought taking my medicine was enough, but I was wrong. I remember like it was yesterday going in for my routine physical around the time of my retirement in 2005, and my doctor asking me if I wanted to live to enjoy my retirement. My A1C level at the time was 12. Normal is below 7. I remember the doctor saying to me that I should be in a diabetic coma. I took some action then to get out of immediate danger, but it took the death of my mother in 2007 for me to finally accept I was a type 2 diabetic. I changed doctors again in 2013 and got serious about my health. I take my medication as I should. I changed my diet. I started to take control of my weight and I began exercising regularly. I even looked for other information about diabetes. While attending a Zumba class at my church, we had a guest from Clemson University who told us about a diabetic support group. I contacted them and joined the group in 2018. We still meet online, and I have learned so much more about how to deal with my diabetes and take care of myself. Diabetes is a life-changing experience, not a death sentence. It's like Patti LaBelle said, quote, "I might have diabetes, but diabetes doesn't have me," end quote. I stand on Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I continually pray and thank God every day for strengthening me through this life-changing diagnosis. If you already know you are at risk of developing diabetes, do something about it now. If you don't know your risk factors, including your family history, find out about it now. In other words, just get talking. It'll make all the difference.
Gestational diabetes develops in pregnant women and usually goes away after the baby is born. However, this is not the end of the story. Women who have had gestational diabetes are at a high risk of developing type 2 diabetes later in life. Their babies are more likely to struggle with obesity through their teens, and they are also more likely to develop type 2 diabetes as adults.
My name is Vardrew Williams, and in the fall of 1997, when I was just 21 years old and pregnant with my daughter, I heard the term gestational diabetes. Like most 21-year-olds, for sure, and perhaps like a lot of people, I had no idea what it meant that I had gestational diabetes. I had no idea of the danger and the potential risk to me and my unborn baby. For me, it meant I was at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes later in life. For my baby girl, it meant she could grow too large, potentially get wedged in the birth canal, have birth-related injuries, or need to be delivered by C-section, which could present all sorts of other challenges. In the case of my baby girl, she was born 6 weeks premature, but still weighed in at 8 pounds, Who ever heard of a premature baby weighing 8 pounds and being completely healthy? My family and I thank God. My baby was healthy and my A1C levels went back to normal. An A1C test is used to determine what your blood sugar levels have been over the past 3 months. It's a commonly used test to help your healthcare provider determine if you're a pre-diabetic or in fact a diabetic. Normal is below 5.7%, so since my numbers had returned to normal, everything was okay, or so I thought. It took another 16 years, but on April the 7th, 2014, I was again told my A1C levels were high. I was in shock. After all, I didn't eat a lot of sweets, so how could I have high sugar? High sugar. That's what my elderly family members call diabetes. Of course, the number of sweets I ate or didn't eat really had nothing to do with it. It was a whole lot of things. It was my poor diet. I ate lots of starches like rice, potatoes, and bread. I love a good piece of bread. It was the fact that I had gestational diabetes. It was the fact that my mother is also a diabetic. I tried to adjust my diet on my own. No dark sodas, popcorn instead of other snacks I thought were bad. In fact, I just developed even more serious health issues. My blood pressure rose so high I was considered in stroke range. I had become a perfect candidate for a heart attack. I was in trouble. I was being treated by my primary care physician, a cardiologist, and nutritionist, but nothing was working. My A1C levels continued to rise. I changed my diet, began exercising, and I was taking several diabetic medicines. My body was not responding. As a last resort, my primary care physician suggested gastric bypass surgery. My initial response was no, absolutely not. That kind of surgery was not for me. I rejected the idea for another 3 years, but along the way, I did a lot of research. I discussed it with my family and close friends. I prayed a lot. I finally agreed to gastric sleeve surgery. It was hard, and it's not for everyone, but for me, it ended up being right. It's not a cure, it's a tool. A tool that, if used properly, can give you a chance to live a good, long life. It's given me a chance to raise my children and be here to see them graduate high school and college. A chance to be here for the next milestones in my life. I still have a nutritionist, I eat right, I exercise, and I must work hard every day. But I am doing it without diabetes medication, and I only take a very low dose of blood pressure medicine. October the 17th, 2017, I was reborn. I am living my best life. I am still a diabetic, but it no longer controls my life. I am free to follow God's plan for my life, and that is exactly what I am doing. I stand on Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. If you are at risk of developing diabetes, do something about it now. If you don't know your family history, find out about it now. In other words, just get talking. It'll make all the difference.
Greetings. My name is the Reverend Charles Lee White Jr., and I have the blessed privilege of serving as the senior pastor of the St. Mark United Methodist Church in Taylor, South Carolina, affectionately called the 911, where we believe that this church is on fire. Historically, the Black church has been one of the strongest and most trusted voices in the Black community. Black pastors and church leaders have served both as spiritual and community leaders, trusted voices in our community. Therefore, it is fitting that St. Mark is helping to lead in this effort to educate, encourage, and mobilize the African American community to embrace trusted information and protect our health. We must not only be concerned with folks going to heaven when they die, but we must also be concerned about them living a good and healthy life, that we may be for the world the body of Christ, redeemed by his blood. May all go well with you, and that you may be in good health as it goes with your soul.
The message is clear. Communication is key. Talk with your loved ones about your health. Share your family's medical history with each other. Talk to your doctor. And most of all, schedule those life-saving tests and screenings. Make it happen now. Let's get talking. It'll make all the difference.